Dr. Otige, who is going to react to the presentation by the two lead speaker earlier. And we are also going to have Dr. Lukman, who will also do the same, so that we'll see how we're going to expand it and discuss things like challenges, sustainability, how to raise funds, how to establish, and the rest of it. I'm going to welcome Dr. Abaji. Doctor, sir, I'm very sorry, but so kind. We are just telling you, and I know this. We are capable of using that very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is AL-HABIBIYYAH, and I'm representing the team to just build on what the previous speakers have said concerning the subject of philanthropic giving. Quite a lot has been said from the onset. We have established from both the Christian and Muslim backgrounds that our religious groups fully support these kinds of gesture. And there's every need for all stakeholders to join hands to make these kinds of initiatives to work. One thing that Reverend Father George mentioned, which I want to quickly build upon, is about structures. It's about structures. Looking at the current structures that we have within the church and even the Islamic setting, are we convinced that we have the right structures that will attract these kinds of philanthropic giving? Let me quickly share from some experiences I've had, especially with Pentecostal pastors. You will be shocked that some churches have existed for 10-15 years and they don't even have a bank account. They don't have a bank account. And in some organizations, in some churches, you will discover that even if they have a bank account, the signatories are husband and wife. The signatories to the bank account are husband and wife. So you have a problem of accountability. So even if you have a foreign donor who wants to bring in resources to the organization, these kinds of structures will raise a lot of questions, especially around accountability. So there's a need for us to have proper structures internally to explain our organizations and check if those structures support this kind of initiative, and philanthropies will be willing, based on the kind of structures we have, to provide resources. Another area is identifying the problems we want to solve. We cannot solve all the problems. No one organization can solve all the problems in the world. But it is important that organizations identify which space do you want to operate. What will be your thematic focus? What will be your programmatic focus? And then limit your funding or whatever opportunities you are looking for within those spaces where you want to operate. And then it's also important to note that there are different kinds of resources that we can enhance. Resources is not just about money. Resources is not just about money. There are different resources we can enhance. and you must classify what kind of resources do you need for a particular problem that you want to solve. I remember a program, a conference we organized in Lagos. We spent about 9 million naira on that conference. Recently, because we don't have funding, we organized the same conference in Taraba State with the same impact. And believe me, we did not spend up to $500,000 in that conference. So, resources is not just about money. You must identify and classify what kind of resources you need per activity. We wanted to observe to mark the 2025 International Women's Day under the side-by-side women for gender justice. And we said, we don't have money to do this, we wanted to have a conference. And I said, do a budget. And we drafted a budget. The budget was about, I think, 3 million or so. And I said, there's still a way we can hold this conference, have an impact conference, without even spending this money. And how did we do it? Collaboration. Collaboration is a powerful tool that we can deploy in our various programming to ensure that we make the necessary impact. Pull yourselves together, bring different organizations together of like minds who are willing to carry out these activities with you. You know, with the little resources that each organization is able to contribute, you have a good outing and you have shared outcome. In the last 6 years, we have been promoting what we call the establishment of the social dimension of the church. And I'm happy that Father George touched on some of the biblical references that borders around the social dimension of the church. If you look at the way the churches operate, you will discover that there's a lot of focus on spirituality. Every day we go to church, Sunday, Wednesday, there's a lot of focus on spirituality. The church has neglected its social responsibility. Very few. I was just talking with Archbishop now. You know, and I'm happy that he has a foundation. And a few of some of the leading men of God in the country have some of these organizations, you know, the social arm of their churches that focus on social issues. So religion shouldn't just be about spirituality. We must have an arm in either our mosque or our churches that deals with the social issues of poverty, issues of unemployment, issues of gender-based violence. There are so many issues that we can choose to focus on. So there's a need for the church or our religious organizations to refocus our minds on a social responsibility. One of the things we also try to establish is, you know, churches have large collections of offerings. In fact, if you know how much some of these churches collect as tithes and offerings every Sunday, you'll be shocked. And you wonder, what on earth are these people doing with all this money? Sometimes you see a big church, a good hall like this, and because they have so much money, the general overseer can come up and say, pull down this structure and build some. There's nothing wrong with it, you need that. But even the building you are trying to pull down, there's really nothing wrong with it. You could have deployed the resources for something else. So one of the things we try to promote is that out of the bulk of the tithes and offerings that churches collect on a weekly basis, is it possible to set aside some percentage of that tithe and offering and push it into the social arm? The social arm now need to use the resources that they accumulate from this 5% or 2% of your weekly or monthly tithe and offering to begin to engage in these kinds of social issues. So, I've talked about collaboration, and then one of the major things, like I mentioned, is the issue of accountability. If, as an organization, you have not demonstrated that you are an accountable organization, it will be difficult for any philanthropist to even donate to the organization. And demonstrating accountability is not just coming to say, oh, this, you have this, you have spent this. Right from the setup of your structure, how your structure is set up, we tell that individual or that organization if you are an accountable organization. Another mention about generosity as an evidence of faithfulness and righteousness. This is a fact. This is a fact. And in fact, in the parable of the Last Judgment, this alone should stimulate us, especially those of us who are Christians in this house. This alone should stimulate us to refocus our minds to our social responsibilities. One key area that I also want to mention is the need to purge the church. The need to purge the church. There are a lot of bad eggs out there that are making the church appear to be bad. There are a lot of bad eggs out there that are giving the church a bad name. And I'm saying this because our Archbishop is also here. You are at the top echelon of the Pentecostal space. There should be a way to purify the space and filter some of these people who are giving the church a bad name. Because if the church continues to have a bad name, there's every tendency that this philanthropic giving or these philanthropies may have a second thought, in terms of contributing to the church. And finally, the issue of our teachings, incorporating philanthropy into our teachings. Incorporating philanthropy into our teachings. Our people need to understand the importance of generosity, the importance of giving. And we have a lot, especially we who are Pentecostals, we have a lot to learn from the Catholic Church. We have a lot to learn even from the Islam faith. The Zakat is a very beautiful, initiative that we can learn from. And it is my hope that we can begin to raise voices of advocacy within the church to promote philanthropic giving. Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you very much. I think you have captured it for